Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Japan once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, a good few different styles, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're best known for their different kinds of IPAs, and they are always very solid in this particular category. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases. A good few of their beers made their way over here to Hong Kong actually, which was a nice surprise for me, so you are going to see a few reviews from this brewery over the next little while. So the one that we're looking at today is a style that I know these guys can do very well. This is a beer that I wanted to try since I saw it through my local dealer over in Osaka in Japan, so to find it here in Hong Kong was a very nice surprise. Needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one's going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to a little place called Hokuto, which is in Yamanashi Prefecture out to the west of Tokyo, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Uchu Brewing, or Space Brewing as it would be if you put it into English. But this particular beer is called Fractional Enlightenment. It comes in at 8.5% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this is one of maybe 6 beers that appeared here in Hong Kong from Uchu Brewing. This is another one that I picked up at the wonderful Gur Beer in the one mall in Tsim Sha Tsui in Kowloon here in Hong Kong, and yeah, I paid probably about twice the price for this as I would have back in Japan, but you know, the chances of me actually finding this one when I was back in Japan were pretty small, because the Uchu stuff goes very fast these days. They've got a really great reputation within the Japanese beer scene, and their beers are rightly very sought after. But yeah, this should be really nice. Let's crack on and do as we always do and see what this beer has in store for us. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Uchu Brewing before, and there will definitely be more from these guys at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with a number of other things. That is of course being added to very regularly now that I'm based out in Asia. And do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well. And if you find yourself in Japan, Uchu Brewing are definitely one of the breweries that you want to check out. And also a big shout out to Nevit of Japanese Craft Beer Reviews. He's reviewing a lot of really interesting Japanese stuff, and he'll be able to keep you up to date with the Japanese beer scene quite a bit. So I'll put the link to his channel in the video description for you below, so do go and show him some love. But yeah, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a wee bit about Uchu Brewing once again then. So Uchu Brewing were founded back in 2017 by Masahiro Kusunoze and Rumiko Suzuki, and these guys both come from a background in agriculture, and they first encountered craft beer on the US West Coast, and they said that they just loved the different personalities that each brewery had, and they wanted to bring some of this culture back with them to their native Japan. So Masahiro originally was the main brewer, and Rumiko was working with the kind of marketing side and business side of the brewery, but she was taking part in the brewing and their farming activities as well, although the company has expanded quite a little bit since then, and they do have quite a few guys in their brew team from what I've seen. But they started their farming activities back in 2009 under the name Space Farmers, and they were growing rice and vegetables, quite a variety of different things without pesticides. But fast forward to 2016, they planted hops, and they have their own hop fields right next to the first brewery, and they often handpick a number of the hops that go into the beers. But today they're running miso making and rice paddy workshops and various other things. They are still very much involved in their local community, kind of helping people to grow their own food and become self-sustaining and all this kind of thing. This is one of the things the brewery really wants to focus on, is sustainability. But they raised over 3 million yen through crowdfunding, and they used this to build their own brewery in Hokuto in Yamanashi Prefecture, which, like I said, is out to the west of Tokyo, and much of the construction in this brewery was kind of DIY. So they sold their first beers in 2018, and then they expanded the brewery in 2021 with a second round of crowdfunding, which raised about 17 million yen. But the next year in 2022, they managed to raise a further 12 million yen, and they used this to open their first tap room, which is called Roadside Station Kabuchisawa, and this is about 15 kilometers away from the original brewery. So over the next few years, they are planning to open up a new facility, a much larger facility from what I understand, and they're currently working to produce some barrel-aged beers as well. They have very recently been producing some kind of fruited sours and stuff like this, using local fruits. I still need to check out some of those actually. I haven't tried any of them, but yeah, I'm wondering if that means these guys are going to start having a go at some sort of, you know, old school lambic style beers. That would be very, very interesting to see from Uchu Brewing. But the name, as I kind of hinted at earlier, means space brewing if you translate it into English, and as a result of this, many of their beers are named after like different planets and different astronomical objects and things like this. But they've got a number these days that are named after different, you know, scientific concepts and stuff like that as well. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Uchu Brewing for the moment. The only other thing to add is that as of June 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 250-ish beers according to Untappd. But yeah, if you're interested in the Japanese craft beer scene, Uchu Brewing are definitely one of the really you know, one of the really kind of up and coming breweries at the moment, I guess you could say. They're already very, very well respected, but yeah, they've still got a lot of potential, I would say, and definitely best known for the different kinds of IPAs. So if you get the chance to try some Uchu Brewing beer, trust me, you're not going to be disappointed with it. Really, really good stuff coming out from these guys. But yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. As I said, I'm very, very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Because yeah, I saw this one being shown on Liquor Shop Asahiya, their Facebook page, and that's normally where I would get a bunch of my Japanese beer, but of course got a longer period away from Japan at the moment with work and things like that, so unfortunately wasn't able to get this one. But yeah, I really do like the artwork on this. This one is really quite interesting. I don't know if I still have it open. Let me just have a wee look at this. But yeah, one of the things about the Uchu Brewing beers is they always have this little kind of concept poem thing on the back, and I'm not 100% sure if it's like a haiku or something like this, but the translation of this one goes, "O lost traveler, all beings are essentially nothing, yet at the same time they are beings and are deeply connected. There is one answer, but there are also countless answers. This is the universe, and the universe is always with you. Let's start the journey. You are the universe." So yeah, I noticed that. I'll see if I can add these in when we do Uchu Brewing beers going forward, because some of these are quite interesting, very philosophical of course. But to tell you about the beer itself, this one is 8.5% ABV. It's a New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and the hops in this one are Citra, and also a new one that I've never encountered before as far as I remember, HBC 1019. So Citra, we know, 14% alpha acid, one of the classic American hops. Gives you big juicy mango and quite a little bit of lemon limey character in a New England Hazy. But the HBC 1019, it's an American hop from the Hop Breeding Company, hence the what's the word I'm looking for, the acronym with the name. But yeah, this gives 10 to 12% alpha acid, and it's supposed to give flavours of melon, peach, orange and coconut. So should be quite interesting. Sounds a little bit like Sabro actually, crossed with cashmere or something like that. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. Fractional Enlightenment, a triple dry hopped double IPA from the wonderful Uchu Brewing in Yamanashi Prefecture in Japan. Let's do this. I always love making Uchu reviews because these beers really are pretty special actually. So yeah, pretty fresh as well from what I can gather. But yeah, as you can see when we poured the beer, it came out with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head there, but that has just kind of faded away to a little bit of an almost kind of soapy kind of character. You can see the words coming off my glass as well. But yeah, you've got this kind of soapy ring around the edge of the glass now and just a little bit of fizzy bubble standing in the middle of the glass there. But yeah, overall, it looks pretty nice, this beer, pretty much as you would expect from the New England Hazy IPA. So you can see this one has a lovely sort of mango juice type colour to it. So yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. Two, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect it too, but when it comes to New England hazies, you don't often have to care about that, to be quite honest with you. There's not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, and you can see that the opacity of this one, the haziness, is pretty heavy actually. That's one of the soupier and gloopier New England doubles that I've come across for quite a wee while. So level of haze in these beers depends on oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. So that can vary from brewery to brewery and indeed beer to beer. But yeah, all in all, appearance wise, there's nothing particularly surprising about this one when you consider what style it is. So yeah, should be quite good. Let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and just see how it goes. Yeah, very curious about this, especially because I don't, because the hop in this one I'm really not familiar with. But yeah, it does smell very good, and it is pretty damn fresh as well, I will say that. Doesn't smell any less fresh than the ones I get in Osaka actually. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So first impression of this one is, it's got quite a little bit of kind of fruity punch to it, which is probably that new hop that I'm not familiar with. The melon and the peach jump out of this one right away. But yeah, the malty side of this one is quite interesting too. So like I've said, with New England IPAs, you have 6 little elements to think about in the malt, with the kind of malty and yeasty side of things. You've got the farmhousey yeasty side of the beer, you've got the rye lean and grainy side of things. That one's a bit more common in American brewed New England's, right enough. You've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also a little bit of sweetness. But for me, just on first impression, this New England comes across as if it's going to be a little bit more wheaty. Yeah, I would go with that. It leans a bit more toward the kind of wheaty end of the spectrum, but I think the fruity character could be giving that impression. We'll need to see when we taste it. But you get quite a little bit of wheatiness out of it. You can smell the soft kind of barley malt bread underneath that as well. And there is a wee bit of the oaty creaminess as well. It's not overly sweet, and there's definitely not really rye and stuff like that in this one. But yeah, the aroma of this is quite nice, and it is quite leaning toward that sharper tropical end of the spectrum actually. So yeah, aroma-wise, this is pretty nice. Let's break this down then and describe the aroma for you a wee bit more in depth. So, backbone of the beer. For me, you've got a lovely little bit of a kind of fresh, white bready bread crust to this one. This is something you very often get with New England IPAs. So, soft, fresh, white bready bread crust in there. Little hints of like woody character. Also a little bit of crackery note coming out of it. So yeah, woodiness, crackery character. On top of that, you start to get like that fluffy white bread in there. But yeah, you can smell the kind of dense wheaty character coming out of this one for sure. The wheat is giving you, to a degree, it is giving you a little bit of that kind of smoothening effect that it can very often have, but it does also have just a little bit of that wheaty bitiness too, so that's worth bearing in mind with this one. That bit of wheaty bitiness that comes out of this beer is very, very nice. On the back of the nose though, you do get that little bit of sharper, kind of more punchy wheaty character coming out of the beer. I'm just trying to sort of zone my nose in on the oats with this one, to be honest with you. because as I've often said, you know, the OT character in these New England IPAs can be used as a sort of rough indicator of how fresh your beer is. Essentially, the creamier the oats are, the fresher it is, the drier the oats are, the older it is. But there's wee variations there because, you know, European oats are a bit more creamy than American oats, which I find are a little bit more porridgey. Out here in Asia, you've obviously got Australian malt to think about as well, which I'm still not overly familiar with. But yeah, the if you take this beer in a little bit more deeply, you start to get the big lovely kind of creamy oaty characters coming out of it. It does smell quite creamy, but there is just that little hint of kind of dryness coming out of the edge there. And obviously with this beer coming from Japan, it will be a couple of weeks old, so yeah, you will get a little bit of that in there. But yeah, lovely creamy oaty character in this one for sure. Little touch of the dryness, and maybe, just maybe, there is a little slight hint of like Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch in there. But at 8.5% ABV, you kind of would expect that a little bit. That kind of just goes with it, to be honest. But yeah, I think we've covered everything we really need to about the malty side of this beer and the yeasty side, to be honest with you. So yeah, the only thing I would say is just a little bit more of a kind of farmhousey bready thing in the back of the nose, but it's good. I like it. In terms of the hoppy side of things then, the green component of this beer is quite interesting. I find it very bright, and this is what you'd expect with a New England IPA. I mean, with IPAs you have three kinds of hoppings you can use. Early addition hopping, which is usually taking place within the first hour of the wort boil. That's going to give you a big, deep, dank aroma, and it's going to contribute mainly to your bitterness. Late addition hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. That gives you a very bright green component. It contributes a little bit to bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. Dry hopping, which is the one that takes place after the wort boil is complete, that gives you all flavour and aroma, and again gives you a very bright green component. New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs are going to use a good little bit of early addition hopping as well, which is why they have these deeper, danker aromas, of course. But yeah, with this one you definitely get that big green component. There's a little touch of that kind of pine resiny character underneath. It does have a wee bit of dankness to it, but very bright, slightly spicy floral aromatic notes. And there's also just quite a little bit of zesty grassiness coming out of this one as well. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that sense, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, I like that about this one. The way that all of that sort of pieces together, I think, is really nice. But yeah, the fruity side of this one, this is where it's interesting the most, because, you know, it's a hop that I'm not madly familiar with. So yeah, for me, there is that. I do get a little bit of the soft apricot in there and quite a juicy ripe mango. There's definitely peach for sure, and I think that's going to come, as I say, it comes both from the experimental hop and also from the citrus. So there's definitely a bit of that peachy sharpness in there. Melon, maybe a bit, but I think the peach kind of supersedes it a little bit. But yeah, peach, definitely a bit of melon underneath, juicy ripe mango, soft apricot, and then yeah, you also have that little bit of kind of lemony limey character, and there is maybe a wee bit of a slightly gooseberry lychee sort of thing going on with it as well. And you know, usually I think more lemony limey. I think this beer's got quite a big sort of floral aromatic punch to it and things like that. It's nice. The peach, I think, really stands out for me in this one though. But as I always say, take a bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one and just see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the, just to get the name right, Fractional Enlightenment, an 8.5% triple dry hopped New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Uchu Brewing in Hokuto, Yamanashi Prefecture over in Japan. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers, kanpai. pretty damn good, and I wouldn't expect anything less from Uchu Brewing either. The one thing I will say, first impression, is it seems to have a little bit more carbonation to it, this one, but that might just be as a result of the journey and things. But I did notice that there is like a sort of steady stream of bubbles coming up toward the centre of the glass with this one. So yeah, maybe there's a wee bit of rogue yeast or something like that in this one, who knows. But yeah, this beer is in pretty good condition. It is pretty fresh. But yeah, first impression of this one is it's quite like what I was getting from the aroma. Quite a bit of wheaty character to this one, but yeah, absolutely up to the standards that you would expect of Uchu Brewing. This is good. So yeah, very soft actually. It shows you a bit more oaty character into the aftertaste as well. But yeah, let's just try and break this beer down then and describe that for you a wee bit more in depth. Middle third of your palate, you can feel the backbone of the beer is that sort of lovely fresh, hedgehoggy, white bready bread crust in there. As you move further forward, there's a wee tiny hint of woodiness, but it's very, very minimal in this beer. I always get just a little bit of woodiness there further forward in the middle third of your palate. But above that, there's a nice little bit of Jacob's cream cracker coming out of this one. So yeah, lovely little bit of that Jacob's cream cracker in there. And then above that, you start to get the kind of barley malt bread out of this beer. I feel there's maybe just a slight layer of like a very slight wholemeal brown bready layer, but then yeah, above that, fluffy white bready notes coming out of this one. Yeah, so fluffy white bready notes coming out of the beer. And I would say it's above that, yeah, you do really start to get the wheat out of this. The more and more I drink of this beer, the more the wheat just starts to show a little bit of that almost pungent character coming out, and that is good. So for me, yeah, you've got the wheat in a sense above the kind of fluffy white bread layer. You can feel that more dense wheaty white bready character, and then toward the back of that middle third of your palate, you're getting a wee bit more bitiness. But yeah, further forward, it's got a little bit more of a it's got a little bit more of a kind of creamy and smooth note to it. But then yeah, of course, above that wheaty layer, you start to get the you do start to get the more oaty type notes coming out of the beer. So the oaty side of this one is quite nice. If you go down that middle line of your tongue, you've got that lovely kind of oaty, creamy type note. So you can feel, yeah, that oaty creaminess just going down the middle line of your palate. And then as you move further out toward the edges of the palate, you do get a little touch of the oaty dryness there. But yeah, the oaty character is actually quite dense in this one, which I find interesting. So yeah. So yeah, a good little bit of oaty creaminess in this one, which I do have to say I do quite like. And yeah, that is really good actually. But on the in the middle of the palate, there's not too much in the way of sweetness. Like normally with these beers, you would get a little bit of that Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of sweetness. But yeah, with this one, you do have just that little bit of, I would say, you just get a little circle there, and it's a wee touch of like Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy, and yeah, it just has that little touch of like biscuity character around it. But yeah, pretty typical centre of the palate in this beer from with what we'd expect from Uchu Brewing. And to be honest, I do remember a number of the Uchu Brewing beers. They tend to be a little bit wheaty and bitey and things like that. I think they like having that wheaty bitiness to the beers. But yeah, I think we've covered the middle third of the palate, so let's go to the back third of the palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But do remember that sweeter flavours come out a little bit further forward on the palate, and more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. But yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. There's a wee touch of brown bread in the base, the fluffy white bread from the barley malt on top of that, then you get the wheaty bitiness. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you get the nice kind of hedgehog white bready bread crust in there. Above that, you've got that more you've got a little bit of that more Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing. Brown bready character sitting on top of that, and you can feel that layer's a little bit lighter, more airy. Then you've got the barley malt white bready character that comes out on top of that, and again that's a lot lighter, more airy in there. And then beyond all of that, you have the beyond all of that, you start to get the kind of, on top of all that, you get the wheaty bitiness, and then it's the yeasty character that comes out. So let's have a little look at that yeasty side of things. So yeah, it feels a little bit boozier, this Uchu, compared to others that I remember as well. It could just be that, I've not had one of these in a wee while, but it does, to me, it certainly does strike me as being just that little bit more boozy. But yeah, on top of that, as I say, you get the yeasty character there. So the yeasty notes on this beer, for me, it's got like a little bit of a wholemeal brown bready character at its centre. Then around that, it's got a more white bready type note. And then the very edge of it's like a more kind of fresh white bready bread crust, actually. So yeah, the way that kind of pieces together in this one, I think, is also very, very nice. So yeah, definitely back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down a little bit and squashes together that little bit more. But yeah, all in all, the way it goes together, I think, is really, really nice. On the hoppy side of things, then, as I say, this one does feel a little bit more bitter, actually. That's another thing about this beer. It's more wheaty and bitey, and it's also just a little bit more bitter, I would say, than some other ones. But yeah, in the back corners of the palate, you do get a teeny little bit of earthiness there, and as you come further forward along the side of the palate, you can feel there's a wee bit of dry hopping going into this, a wee bit of early edition hopping, sorry. You can feel that little bit of deeper, danker character in there, which I really like. So that definitely comes out of this one, that deeper, danker character. And as you reach the front corners of the palate, you start to get a little bit more kind of floral aromaticity coming out of it as well. It's got a little bit more of that kind of spicy floral aromatic note. Then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a wee bit lighter and more grassy for sure, which again, I really do quite like. So yeah, the grassiness has a little bit of zestiness to it as well. But let's focus on the fruity side of the beer then, that front third of your palate. So, pardon me, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there again. Brown bready character in the base, the white bready character in the middle, then the wheaty character on the top. The base of the front third of your palate, again, you've got the kind of hedgehog bread crust, the cracker, a little bit of the brown bread, the fluffier white bread, and then yeah, the wheaty character sitting above that there. So yeah, that looks that comes across pretty nicely, I have to say. Yeah, on top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll the way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that. Yeah, the fruitiness in this one is really nice, actually. It does remind me a wee bit of like, it really does remind me a little bit of the sort of melony notes you get out of this one. It's not cashmere, there is another hop that gives you that kind of melon. It almost has a little bit of a strata type quality to it, which I find quite interesting. But yeah, on the if you go into that oily bubble at the back of that front third of your palate, it does have that like sharper, juicy, kind of peachy character there. That's going to come both from the Citra and the HBC 1019 in this one, definitely. But as you move, there's maybe a little touch of stronger grapefruit just at the very, very back as well. So yeah, there's a wee bit of grapefruit from the Citra. As you come further forward from that, you definitely get a little bit of the sharper peach. Then as you move further forward, there's a nice, juicy, sort of ripe mango-y character in there. So yeah, nice big juicy ripe mango. underneath that, you get like a softer apricot and things. There's maybe a wee bit of pineapple coming out of this one too, for sure. But yeah, as you move into the kind of front half of that front third of your palate, it shows you a few different characters as well. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer, for me on the front half, I can definitely get some of the orange from that HBC 1019. There's definitely a wee bit of that coming out in here. There is like a little touch of an almost like gooseberry type note to it, and I'm getting a wee bit, just as you reach the very front tip of the tongue, I'm getting a wee bit of like a kind of limey note as well, actually. So yeah, orange and limey character for me in the front half of the beer. But I'm just trying to think, is there a bit of melon in this one? Maybe into the aftertaste you get a little bit of the melon. But yeah, the fruity side of this HBC 1019, it's quite an interesting hop. It comes across as being, you know, almost complex in the same way as Citra is. You know, Citra for me is one of the few hops that's complex enough really to kind of get away with it being a single, with doing a single hop IPA. Galaxy can do it as well, and I get the impression that this beer could actually pull it off as well. So yeah, this is really interesting. This hop has a bit of depth to it. It's got the peach, it's got a wee bit of the melon into the aftertaste, and yeah, quite a bit of the orange. You know, I'm getting these sort of things out of it for sure, like they're saying I should. I think the orange is a wee bit more pungent, in honesty, of course, and it's difficult to judge with the peach because you've got the Citra, but you know, it's always cool to encounter new hops and see how they're going to be. But yeah, I think this has been an interesting beer to try for sure, and it's another solid effort from Uchu. So yeah, absolutely, big thumbs up to this one. Yeah, let's just round off then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, yeah, top end of mid-bodied. Carbonation, I think this, I don't know if it's the can or a bit of rogue yeast or something like that. I find this one's got a little bit more carbonation to it than some of the other Uchus I've come across. It might have been stirred up, of course, on the flight over or whatever. So yeah, there is a wee bit of that going on with this one. But yeah, it feels a little bit more carbonated than other ones, but if you take that away, the beer, it is a more wheaty leaning New England double IPA, as I said, so it has a wee bit more kind of hoppy bitterness to it. I'd say this one's maybe about 50-60 IBUs, something like that. The wheaty bitiness kind of amplifies that. The malty side of the beer, as we said, has a bit of crustiness underneath, the smooth bread in the middle, and a wee bit of the bitey, wheaty character on top. Not so much sweetness to this one, just a little bit, actually, I would say. And then yeah, the fruity character is quite nice actually. It gets a little bit more tropical into the aftertaste, a bit softer and more tropical, but yeah, when you first take it in, it's got the, you know, the grapefruit and the peach sharpness, and also the kind of orangey and limey notes coming out of it. But really good beer, this one, and certainly up to the standards I would expect of Uchu Brewing. So I think we can leave it at that for this review. So yeah, this one was the Fractional Enlightenment, an 8.5% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from the wonderful Uchu Brewing in Hokuto, Yamanashi Prefecture over in Japan. And this is one of 4 reviews that you are going to see appearing over the next couple of weeks. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you guys again with another review very shortly. Till then, Slange, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Uchu Brewing's social media, check out my friend Nevit over at Japanese Craft Beer Reviews, and I'll catch you again very soon. Ciao just now.